Let's just try some gentle stretching. So just reaching up. It's easier if you do one hand at a time. And then the same thing, but reaching forwards. So turning the head to the side, like you're pulling a rope in. Really try and stretch out before you pull in. And turn the head. And then just fists on either hip. And now just turning and punching to the side. And now really try and twist the head so that you look behind yourself. And then bring the fist back, and then the other one. And then back to the front. And now let's try palming. So rubbing the hands. You can either have the eyes open or closed. The idea is that the palms are blocking out all of the light, so it's very, very dark. The struggle is to keep the shoulders relaxing down into the elbows. We are releasing the eyes from looking at anything so that they can relax into themselves. And then the hands down. And now blinking slowly. So closing the eyes, closing the hands, pulling the belly in. Everything closes tightly. Then everything opens widely. So I close in, screwing my eyes up. I open up, widening my face. Feel yourself looking into the distance, and then as you close the eyes, feel the sight coming back inside. And then just a few quick blinks. Turning the head and just going a bit quicker than you'd be inclined to. You're shaking the head. Keep the eyes closed. Relax the face so your jowls are wobbling around. And then just stop. And then once more, but more quickly. And stop. Let everything settle. But the idea of the palming is that it relaxes the eyes. They don't feel a need to go out and focus on things. They're quite content to remain hooded and withdrawn. Let's try the palming once more. So just rubbing the hands. Relaxing the shoulders down into the arms and the hands. The pressure between the hands comes as much from your relaxing shoulders as it does from any strength of one arm pushing against the other. And then just stretching out a bit and arming. And just trying to relax, concentrate on the breathing. As you breathe in, the eyes will tend to open. And as you breathe out, the eyes will tend to close. So the eyes are breathing as well as your lungs. The struggle is to keep the shoulders relaxing. I'd like to feel as though my hands are kept in place by the relaxing of my shoulders. And the hands down. And now again, closing the eyes, tightening the belly, closing the fists, and opening. I'm looking out, and then I bring the sight in, closing the eyes. And a few quick blinks. And then the hands into prayer posture. And just a few more shaking of the head. Try and spray the room with draw. And then just stop. And just let it settle. So a riding horse. So let's start by doing the 2 circles. What I want to do is feel my tail. So there's a sense of something extruding out of my sacrum, taking this line. I'm sticking my bum out effectively, but not stupidly, intelligently. So I want to be able to direct my tail and then swing it around. I have to be able to really have control over this area so that I can direct and extend my tail. Very important for spirit. So normally riding, let's just come into normal riding horse. So it's very much settled in the heels, sacrum heavy, feeling as though my tail is dropping down, feeling that I've withdrawn inside myself. So it's backward. I'm at the back of my cylinder and I'm quiet inside. I've settled into myself. I've almost cut off from the world around me. So that is quiet. That's all well and good, but it has absolutely nothing to do with spirit. Maybe it's a ground from which spirit can project. It's what we were doing before, just coming onto the toes. So let's just try that. So just feel this riding horse. I'm sinking into my heels. I get this sense that I've come inside. My arms are out to balance my leaning back. And then I just want to come onto the toes, lift the heels up, but also sink. I want the feeling that coming onto my toes actually causes me to stick my bum out behind me. So my lower back becomes much more curved and my tail, if anything, it becomes like a squirrel's tail that's sort of extending up behind you and over your head. Or you can think of like a devil's tail that's flailing around behind you. So the tail becomes very active. And that makes you just become wild and ferocious. So this becomes active as well. So it's not the mind that's drawn in and settled in the Dan Chen. It's this craziness that's coming out in order to pounce on the prey, like the hunting tiger. So another way they practice it is by just making claws with the hands. So you are, and opening the mouth. So like the lion pose in yoga, is go wow. You get a real sense that something has come out of your forehead, a madness, the eyes that flare. Something in you is really just relaxed and is trying to extend outwards through the tail. You're trying to grow a real tail. And then we just rock back onto the heels And just go back into normal riding horse where everything has come back in. All those extensions have just sucked back into your body and you've just become quiet inside. But also you've become detached. So this is very much the critical stance, the vantage from which you can observe and judge the world. You're like the judge sitting on high with the wig, casting judgment. And then we want to become the judged. We are the convict now, the crazy psychopath in the dock. And so we sink down, we come onto the front of the foot, we extend the tail out behind us, and we're screaming and ranting and raving. This is extending out behind me. My heart is really thrust out, like something here is trying to erupt out of my chest. And I'm screaming at the world. So the eyes are open, the forehead is and you don't need to come off the heels, but a sense that you're in the front of the foot. The main feeling is in the lower back. It's like it's really tight and compacted, like something's pressed down on my head and squashed me into my lower back. And my tail is really sticking out. And then just rocking back into normal riding horse. Everything draws in and I become peaceful and loving and nice and pathetic, weak. And then I can be all high and mighty, haughty. And now let's just go back to the two circles, again with this feeling of the feeling is that something is pressing you down. You're being pressured down, and that's not getting you down. It's almost causing something in you to fight against it. But what it's doing to your posture is squeezing your tail out so that you have more at your disposal than you would if you weren't put under pressure. So I'm just extending this tail out. I allow it to come out behind me, and then I whip it round. This is just an aspect of spirit that would be absolutely vital if you were living in the wild. You're having to fend for yourself, hunt, and ward off evil spirits effectively. There's a sense of sort of getting down and dirty. So something is really bearing down on me, causing this energy, this these structures just spring out of you. It's like if you're called upon to fight, whether you find yourself in a situation whereby you have to fight, you just become a different creature. You really surprise yourself as to just how wild and capable you become. I'm letting this out, and then I have to pull this under here to bring it around. A lot of the range of feeling that we put ourselves through as we do an exercise, it's all in the subtle movements in this area. So it's basically sexual. It's all to do with moving the groin. And then let's just bring it back to riding horse. So it's got that feeling of having settled inside, but it's also got a feeling that it could really erupt out into that craziness. It's moving from leg to leg by lifting the heel. So this is very similar. Whenever we lift the heel, we're evoking that crazy spirit. And then whenever we settle back into the heel, we're earthing that spirit, letting it subside back into ourselves. So I'm earthing here, and immediately I'm calling the spirit with my other foot. And if I allow both heels onto the ground, then effectively I've gone into riding horse and I've just earthed completely. And the spirit is pretty much subsided and is going to take a bit of effort to mobilize. As soon as this heel goes down, this one's off the ground. riding horse. And now let's just turn. This feeling of just letting the world go by. Just remember how your eyes were after we did the palming. It's like they don't want to open too wide, and they just have settled back inside. It's the same feeling here. I'm letting the world pass by. And then just get into the use of the heels. So as I turn this side, what draws me back is this heel coming up. So the back heel just pops up, and that starts me pulling back into that leg. So the spirit appears in my blind side. I turn away from my left leg, and then the spirit can manifest there. Bring the arms down, just let them swing, keeping the eyes hooded. Feeling the still center where the mind can settle. The relaxed mind wants to be quiet. It's as though the relaxed mind is just naturally lazy, doesn't want to do very much. Whereas the body is just always itching for action. Bring it back. Just go backwards and forwards. So like we did last time, making the figure of 8. As I come forwards, I'm going over the top of the figure of 8. As I go back, I'm going under the bottom. So I come over the top of the figure of eight, and then as I go down and start moving back, it's as though my hands come into my down chin. And then as I go back, I reach behind. And as I start coming forwards, it's as though my hands come up and into my Ming Men. Drawing the space in front of me into my down chin, and then I'm reaching back and drawing the space behind me into my Ming Men. So I'm laying claim, if you like, to both spaces. I just can't see what's behind me, but it's still part of me. I'm reaching back and I'm drawing it in. And this is what we were working on earlier with the tail extending back. Feel this feeling of really reaching back behind yourself, just drawing it into the Ming Men. If anything, you're trying to pull your hands right up your spine. And as you do that, as you go back and extend behind yourself, you squeeze your tail out. And now the other foot forwards. Okay, so going backwards and forwards again, but now doing this one where we just push out. So here, just concentrating on the yielding, the rounding out, the softening in my chest, and drawing back in order to initiate the yield. So my body's moving forwards here, but my chest is hollowing backwards. So my chest is trying to move that way, it's trying to suck in. So there's a movement of my body, but there's also a movement within my body. And they're quite different. We have to really distinguish them. So as we make that hollow, we're effectively going over the top of the figure of eight. It's like I'm throwing a net and capturing something. I'm throwing this net over the person that's coming in and drawing them in. And then feeling it in the groin as well. So this softens here beneath my collarbone. that this softens here as well. It will tend to pull me completely onto the outside edge of the foot. So I have to struggle to keep my big toe pressed down. So in this exercise, the figures of eights have effectively shrunk into circles. So it's only the top of the figure of eight that I'm doing. And so this is Yang style Tai Chi. It only acknowledges the top of the figure of eight. The bottom of the figure of eight, the earth, the earthiness, the craziness, the tail, just isn't acknowledged at all. So if I want to get the tail involved, then when I bring this hand down, and instead of just making the circle, I would need to really reach back here. So let's just try a little bit of that. So I go over the top of the figure of eight, and then I reach back behind myself as the other hand comes out. So if you imagine a tail coming out of your Ming Men or out of your bottom of your sacrum, then this hand that goes behind is just grabbing it or catching some energy from it. So as I reach out and come over the top of the figure of eight, I'm capturing the other person's energy. And as I reach back, I'm capturing some of my own energy. Let's just bring it back to normal, just to remind ourselves of how it's meant to be. So I come forwards, then something just releases here, the leg bends, and it's that that draws me back. It's the relaxation in my sacroiliac joint that then rattles down to all of the joints, relaxing and bending. It's just sinking. I sink down, this opens, the knee bends, the ankle, and that starts me moving into the leg. Back into riding horse. Let's try some of this one. One heel on the floor at a time. As this heel goes down, the other one has to come up. Top of the figure eight is with the foot that's got the heel coming up. The bottom of the figure eight is going around the heel that's going down. And then just get the hand that's going down to go behind you a little bit. The figure eight in the foot. So when I place my foot on the ground, I'm not placing it down as just a lump and a unit. I'm very conscious of this figure of eight that's running through my foot at all times. So when I put my foot down, I'm feeling my interacting with the ground. So just imagine you're stepping onto wet sand or onto grass. You'd really screw it up, you'd really crunch it up, and your foot would really sort of wriggle into the ground each time you put it down. And it's not just something I'm seeing in my mind. I really want to feel like this heel is really trying to slip out as I go around the heel, and the toes are really trying to slip out as I go around the front of the foot. And then the other one. So it's something inside really just has to wake up to get it started, and then you can't not do it because it just feels good. It just feels very active. This is the thing with the body wants to be much more active than we're used to having it. Not just in a sense of the body moving around, but in the sense of all the body parts wriggling and writhing against each other. That's the restlessness. That's like a natural restlessness. The mind should be just very quiet, and the body should be really wriggly and active. And of course, for most of us, it's the opposite. Bodies are just a little bit depressed because they're just not used enough. And the mind is depressed because it can't relax. And then just getting both going. It's exactly the same thing really as this exercise we were doing, but just really feeling it in the foot. And when I do feel it in the foot, how do I feel it inside? And so again, with this feeling that you're being pushed down, there's someone on high and they're just driving you down into your legs, and that's causing your tail just to flick out. So we want the tail to stick back, but without leaning forwards too much. So just imagine that pressure. If you're not going to let it just crush you down like this, you'd really have to bring strength into your lower back so that you can rear back with your head and take it. But that is squeezing your tail out even more. And it's the tail going back that really brings me out into the world with a degree of fire and ferocity. Fighting spirit. You're ready to fight. Ready to go into battle and lose your life gloriously. Bring it up. This is always here. Tending to bring the heel up, it's tending to turn you, and it's tending to wiggle your tail. So there's like this just gentle about here all the time. And I want to feel the figures of eights, the one here, the heart, the one here in the head, and they're slightly out of phase. So as I'm going around this figure of 8, the other two are sort of, they're running in sympathy, but not completely at the same time. There's sort of, ooh, there's this shimmery feeling in the body. And that's just energy. Energy is just sort of this sort of delightful subtlety that becomes exposed when you wake up the body and you quieten the mind. And just be patient, just give it time. The girl in that apartment there, not the one next door here, but the one beneath them, she started playing the violin and she's got such a lovely sound. And she's always practicing. So it's nice to be neighbours to someone who practices.